Hey there, welcome to the Inside Cafe. I'm your host, Nikon, and today I have my dear friend, Sara Joy O'Neill, all the way from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. And let me intro her because her intro is really cool. So today I'm joined by Sara Joy O'Neill. She's a certified advanced transformative coach and chiropractor with over 24 years of experience helping people create lives that they love. She's based near Toronto. Sara works with clients worldwide to overcome challenges, achieve their goals. She's also a competitive Olympic style weightlifter. Didn't see that coming, did you? And a jewelry designer. Sara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Nikon. I'm delighted to be here. This is awesome.
Also, I want to acknowledge my deeper, sexier voice because I am sick at the moment, but I really wanted to do this podcast because I've been so looking forward to talking to you about the things we're going to talk about. And I really want to tell the people who are watching this why I wanted to invite you. So we first met in we've known each other for a while in Michael Niels's Super Coach Academy group, but I've met you the first time in Prague last year at the World
Yeah.
Listening Conference, and it was one of those experiences where there was no difference between on screen and real person because love, the presence was just there. Like I could feel you before I saw you. It's like, oh, Sara. Sara walks in,
I
and
love that. Yeah.
yeah,
For me, it was similar. Just meeting you, I felt like I'd known you forever. And it
right,
was maybe into the second day where I went, oh, wait, this was actually my first time meeting Nikon.
same,
Yeah, there was no real, it was just seamless. Hey, it's my good friend. Here he is. How wonderful.
right. And we're going to talk more about how that works actually, because I do feel that there's a deeper sense about that, right, that we're going to go into. And I also want to share the reason why I wanted to talk specifically to you. A while back, you wrote a testimonial for Michael Neal, and you shared about miracles that you experienced in your own life. And it wasn't the miracles that impacted me so much. It was the way you spoke about the miracles, because you spoke about the miracles in a way where it was as common as waking up in the morning. And I've never heard anybody speak about miracles that way because I think we have a premise that miracles are rare, are difficult. You need to earn them. You need to be good enough. And so I was like, oh, I got to talk to this person who like really lives that miracles are as easy as waking up in the morning. Um, but before we get into that, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story and how you got here.
How I got here. Sometimes I'm very literal, so when you ask that, I'm like, well, I got out of
Yeah,
bed and
right,
I
right.
walked over to my
Got out of bed.
computer. Ta-da. Um, oh goodness. I well, okay, let's see. I um have been following, I guess, the three principles probably since about 1999. And for about 20 years, it was very quietly. And I came across Michael Neal's blog just as he was starting to change into writing about the three principles from his NLP days. And I liked the new stuff better. Didn't really know much about it. And then I started reading a few books by Sydney Banks. And halfway through the first book, it was like I was struck by this massive insight. It felt like God came down and smacked me over the head. And it was just, oh my God, he's talking about his experience of God. And I had had a lot of similar experiences growing up of oneness, where I used to camp a lot, go camping by lakes, and I would all of a sudden feel like I fell into the lake where I couldn't tell the difference between myself or the trees or the lake, and everything was this beautiful energy. And growing up in a very religious family, that was not okay to have those experiences. And when I talked about them, it was just, what's wrong with Sara? And so I kind of squashed it. And Sydney Banks was the first person that wrote in a way that I recognized as similar to what I had experienced and had a language to it and had, like, oh, this isn't just me and I'm not crazy. So then fast forward, um, it was during the pandemic. I started coming on calls with Michael Neal, and I would watch how he would work with people. And I was so fascinated because he I didn't know what was happening. It was all of a sudden people's lives were getting better and they were coming alive, and you could see the light in their eyes all of a sudden. They would go from, oh, life is terrible to, oh, amazing. And I thought, what is happening? So I went down a route of learning transformative coaching and learning about living how we're designed to live. And and then you mentioned testimonial I wrote for Michael. I used to have a brain injury because I hit my head a lot. And in 2016, it was probably the 10th concussion I'd had, and I just didn't come back from it. And I was coping. I looked normal to most people, but it was taking an immense amount of energy. And my husband and kids would see it's like I fell apart every night. And I was told that was as good as it was going to get, and it was permanent. And through seeing both the full nature of who I was and all humans, and being able to recognize thought, those two things, I no longer have any symptoms. It just, things healed that weren't supposed to heal. And even like there's a couple things, there's some things where I can kind of explain it. There's a few things where I really can't explain what happened. And to me, that's sort of the essence of a miracle. It's things happen and you can't explain it. And so here I am. I woke up today and I came to my computer.
That's beautiful. Hmm. In There are a couple things that, because before the podcast, I asked you to fill out a form, and one of my favorite questions to ask is, what can you not stop talking about right now? And I'm just going to pick a couple of those topics because I think they're so interesting. And just to jump off from miracles is, that's the question that comes to mind is, what do you make of that? And coming from, because I know you're also a doctor of chiropractic, chiropractor, and I can,
Chiropractic.
right, chiropractic. I apologize. I don't get to say that word very much. I can imagine coming from that world of like, the word that comes to mind is like very logical and like science and science backed, and like in the body to experiencing something you can't explain.
Mm. It, it's interesting when you had sent that form, it kind of got me pondering and wondering about miracles and sort of the nature of them. And I realized I think the whole setup is a miracle, like life itself and how we're designed to work. And it's so amazing. And I'm so delighted what I grew up thinking was true is completely wrong. I've never been more excited to be wrong. um, it's also interesting from different aspects of life. I've always seen possibility where others maybe don't. Because, yeah, a lot of health sciences, you have to prove this and evidence-based. But I've seen over the years the body heals, and sometimes very like vociferously, like with a lot of vitality. And it sometimes, if you hold the idea or the thought that something is possible versus it's not, everything opens up when you just by looking at it differently, everything opens up. My first degree was also in molecular biology. And I was looking up online some things I remembered from that because I was like, I that was where when you get small enough in the world and in the body, everything's a miracle. And for example, our DNA acts on a quantum level, which means parts of it wink in and out of existence. So they disappear into formless and reappear into form, and it cannot be explained other than it functions on a quantum level. So every cell of our body has this very intimate connection with the formless energy of all life.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind.
Yeah. I am thinking as you were talking, I realized I could relate to just seeing my body do things I can't explain. So as we were sharing earlier before we started recording, like I was traveling all of last week and I was sick. And my purpose for traveling was doing workshops and talks for companies in different countries, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand. And like I was sick like the night before. And I remember having like a one-to-one with my body and be like, all right, I just need you to be okay for 3 hours and then you can be sick. And then it happened exactly like that. For 3 hours, it was as if I wasn't sick at all. And then after the engagement, like and that would happen for like the 4 engagements I had to do. And I was thinking about like, oh, that's really cool. And like that's just so cool to notice. And there's something as you were talking about how as you were talking, the thought occurred to me, oh, everything's a miracle if you notice it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
What what do
The
you
fact that we breathe is a miracle.
I know,
Like
right? We
breathing
breathe.
or like how our blood oxygenates, like that's a miracle. Like it just it never ends. My daughter came into the bedroom this morning and said, Mommy, I love you so much. That's a miracle. She's like everything.
What, what do you think are the implications of living life as if or let me say that again because I didn't like the way it came out. What do you think are the implications of living life recognizing that everything is a miracle?
You mean the outcomes, the what will happen if you do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Well, it'd be a pretty good life.
think
There, it
I'll
is.
take that, Sarah. Pretty good life. That's not a bad deal.
Like there's something in your question that it it feels to me. So what's coming to mind that feels a bit more interesting is when I started to notice that I was always judging life as either good or bad. I prefer this, I don't like this, I don't want bad things to happen, I want good things to happen. And I wondered, well, what would happen if I stopped? Because that's a level of me putting a thought on something.
Right.
And what would happen if I just experienced life as it is? And that's where it started to feel like a miracle. And even if something is not, what we would call good, something we might call bad, it it allows it allows you to be present with what is. And then I was very surprised by things were not what I thought they were.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty in sadness. There's a beauty in everything. And if I didn't work real hard to say, well, that was bad, then there's just so much more depth of feeling and of life. And it's not that I'm trying to say something negative is good. It's neither.
Yeah.
but it allowed me to feel life itself, I think.
Say more to feeling life itself. Like, what do you mean by that?
Hmm, that's a good question.
I think so. I think
Sometimes
so
I say
too.
things, I'm like, what do I mean by that? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
See what comes out of my mouth. Um, well, if you think of the energy of life, like it's the energy that grows trees, that beats our hearts, that spins the planet. It's life itself. It's so abundant.
Yeah.
Like there's so much of it, and it comes through everything. And even things that aren't, quote unquote alive, like my phone or, my computer, everything has this energy of life. And we can feel it more, I think, in things that, our own bodies, trees really do it for me.
Yeah.
But even in my, say I'm worrying about something and my negative thinking, that's created from the formless energy of life. And it's a creation that doesn't necessarily feel great, but in that there's a tone, there's the energy of life because it's what it's made of. In I was in a car accident a year ago, and it was so it was a really interesting experience because I just had a great time. My neck was sore. Nobody was terribly injured, but it was like, okay, there's a series of things to do, but the other people were so nice. And I found myself wanting to like go hang out with them. And I was like, sort of like, Sarah, don't be weird. They don't want to go home with you. And it was just, they were such nice people. And I don't really want to get in a car accident every day to meet nice new people. I don't really have to, but it, everything is so alive.
Yeah. How,
Absolutely everything.
how do you think, or to you, how does that impact the way people approach things in life, like business, relationships, love, health, like the form things that people want in life? Like, how do you think that impacts that?
It impacts it a lot. Um, Let me see. Well, if you're here on Earth and you know, you know that you're okay to start with as a sort of default. I often feel like we've won the lottery by being here. Like we did the hard work getting born and we're here and it's this wonderful setup and we can play and we can experience things and we can do stuff. I laugh at my do stuff, it's very broad. We can create a business, we can create a company, we can create
Or love,
goals,
right? Yeah.
financial goals, and we can make paintings, whatever we decide we want to do. And I think when we're more clear, less sort of extraneous thinking that we don't need, we can really hear from our own soul, our own wisdom, what direction we would love to go in, and we can move forward with that um, from a maybe a playful standpoint. Like if there's nothing to lose, what what would you love to try?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there was nothing to lose, what would you want to try? Hmm. There's something you said just now, and what I heard was you were pointing to listening to life itself.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love for you to share more about that, especially regarding, again, just the things that people generally want to create in life. Like you mentioned, business, art, relationships, goals. Like, what? What's the difference between listening to life and not listening to life?
Well, I suppose one's way easier. Listening to life is way easier. Um, and it's interesting because I was about to say, well, when I set up my chiropractic practice 25, 24, 25 years ago, I did it more in a more traditional, how people do, like get real motivated to go and power my way with force through, I'm gonna create this business. But when I look back, everything that happened kind of just showed up. And so I was exhausting myself with thinking I had to do business in a certain way and that it was hard and that I had to, put in a lot of hours but everything that happened, like the space I leased, I was looking for space to lease and not finding, and then all of a sudden just this perfect space came available. And I remember thinking, oh, I could have just been watching movies until this showed up. Why did I go to all that trouble? And yeah, everything that showed up, it just sort of happened like a miracle. And in listening to life, it's like you get these pulls or nudges, or you just kind of, I've gone to websites to like, hey, look this up, or I have no idea why. And then, 3 steps down the road, maybe 2 weeks later, oh, I met that person, or that's why, or the connections start to look, you see them after the fact. And so it's, I guess when you don't, because it's almost a paradox feeling like you're still active, you're still doing things, but you're not really putting a how on it. Like, I don't know how things are going to come about.
What occurs to me is, do you think simply we've been trained to navigate life by how, right? How do I do this? How do I do that? And what I'm hearing from what you're sharing is it, it's like you go from how to listening because the how is taken care of in the listening. I have a like my
Yeah.
wacky example of what you're sharing about is I was having dinner with my girlfriend and it was like an outdoor restaurant and mosquitoes were biting my leg. And we asked them like, oh, can you do something about the mosquitoes? And they got a fan, but because the plug was like 12 feet away, that's like where the fan had to be, and it wasn't doing a lot of work. So for non-Americans listening, about 4 meter, no, no, about 4 meters away, right? And it was blowing, but it wasn't doing much. The mosquitoes were still biting. And on the table, there was like a basket of fresh vegetables. And for some reason, I can't explain, I took the basil leaves and I
Mm.
crushed them in my hand and I started to wipe them on my legs. And I couldn't tell you exactly why I did that. I just thought this might work. I don't know why this is going to work, but this might work. So I started rubbing it on my legs and the mosquitoes stopped biting my leg. And then I chat GPT'd it. I'm like, does does basil leaves does basil leaves have any ingredient like oils that like are insect repellents? And it's like gave me this whole thing about how the oil of basil leaves is a natural insect repellent for
Mm.
mosquitoes. I never knew that before ever. And I
Yeah.
like so I was having a great time with these basil leaves. I was like, my girlfriend's like, what are you doing with the basil leaves? Like, I like wisdom, like
That's great. Yeah.
and you're right, because it wasn't like, how do I how do I repel insects when I don't have insect repellent and the fan is too far away? It was just in a state of listening. It's like, I don't know why I'm about to scrunch up a bunch of basil leaves, but this is gonna go somewhere.
Yeah, I've had the experience of it feels like I'm watching myself do something.
Yeah, that
I'm
was like that.
wondering.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I have this wondering. where am I going with this? Kind of like, what am I doing with these basil leaves? Oh, look, I'm rubbing them on my legs. How interesting. What's going on with that?
Right. And maybe something I could point to. You used one of my favorite words, wondering. And so
Yeah.
for the past year, actually 3 years in Bangkok, I've been helping leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs really solve their life's toughest challenges and businesses' toughest challenges just by sitting in a space of wondering and just wondering about stuff. And to me, what it is it's like you said, it's consciously giving your thinking brain a break, and you're just going to wonder about stuff. And there's something about in that listening that that brings you back. I say bring you back because that's like where we
Mhm.
come from, right? Brings you back to that quiet space.
Yeah. I have often this feeling of it's like life is waiting for us to come back, to be present with
Yeah,
almost like we're being present with life. And then it's this feeling of, oh, now I can send you the ideas. Now I can give you the
right.
stuff.
Yeah,
Now I can line events up for you and things just start to flow. But yeah, like you said, we learn when we're young, oh, I have to make it happen. It has to be me. I have to do it. And oh, wait, I don't know how.
right, right. And I see the contradiction of wanting miracles and being trained to like make stuff happen. Because by like those two words or the context of those two words, that two phrases, whatever, they don't match. Making things happen in miracles. Because I think my favorite definition of a miracle by Michael Neal is like unearned grace, right? Or
Mm,
like, or another person said, science we can't not yet explain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do find though there's so much, 'cause coming from a science background, there's so much in science where we can explain it and it still blows my mind. The fact that something is designed so elegantly the way it's designed is just crazy. But yeah, it's also the way we go about doing things. It, yeah, it blows my mind that it's like this. We get the the knowing of each step as we go. It's like I think we have to show up to life present, and then it says, okay, now we can do the next thing. Now we can do the next thing for whatever project somebody's working on.
On that vein of thought, I want to ask you, like my thinking says it's a hard question, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways, is doing the next thing. And I want to talk about difficult circumstances because
Mhm.
one of the things that that you share in your work is loving your life regardless of circumstances. And to
Mhm.
me, like there's a part of that sentence that I can see a lot of people having a hard time with. Like, but like, no, Sarah, my life really does suck. Like, have you seen, and like what do you have to say to that? Or how can people see that more clearly? That like, no, really, you really can love your life regardless of
The two
circumstance.
kind of answers are coming to mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Well, so two sort of answers are coming to mind. In actual, say, dangerous circumstances where I've been in a couple where I thought I was going to die and I didn't know how I was going to get through the next 3 seconds,
Mm,
much less the next, day. And in my experience and from talking with others who have experienced very intense now circumstances, the wisdom takes over. You find yourself acting because you have to now.
yeah,
And for me, and I've spoken with others, fear or thinking comes in later when you have the luxury to, when the intensity, okay, we escaped or whatever is going on, we're good now. I can see that life will go on at least for 10 minutes now or a day, or, then you start going, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah.
And that's when you're less clear, is when the thinking comes in. But a lot of times people will sort of say, well, what about when things are very intense, when things are very bad, if bombs are going off or whatever? You act in the moment. Our wisdom takes over. We're very well designed that way. In longer circumstances where maybe you don't have enough food to eat, maybe you're living in an abusive situation, maybe all kinds of things. It's similar in that our wisdom will help us through. No matter what, we will, the more present and clear we are, we'll get those ideas. So it might not be, we were talking about, you get ideas coming to you about the next step in business. You might get, if you're concerned about where your next meal is coming from, those are the ideas going to be coming to you. I
Yeah.
can get food here, I can get food there. Um, I, this, this may not be I'm laughing. This might not be an intense situation, but when I was younger in school, I didn't have enough money to buy vegetables or meat. And I was living on rice for a while because it was all I could afford. Where I'm laughing was the luxury was my family has more money, that I could have gone to my parents and asked, but uh, I
Fair.
was not I was not willing at that time. But it was interesting because I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I remember I got a bit of money, so I went and bought vegetables, and then it was just sort of each day by day, and I didn't think about it being terrible. Um, I think it comes all back to where I was talking about, where we judge everything as good or bad.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we're literally just experiencing everything as it is.
Right.
So then we're very well equipped to, what is the next thing for me now? And I guess the falling in love part is, I was talking about the life itself. It's so abundant.
Yeah.
Even if the person may not be experiencing that abundance in the moment, there's always that energy. We're alive.
Reminded of a Sydney Banks quote that says that you're never stuck. That being stuck is just about a level of consciousness and thought. That if you wait
Yeah.
for it, something new will come in and then you'll see differently. I'm reminded of there was a group client that was a group coaching session with a client. It was like two clients. And we just asked this person to share about their life and what they were up to and what was a challenge. And what was interesting, what came out of that session for me was this person has an amazing life and they don't know it.
Mhm.
And it reminded of this conversation because like for me the insight here is circumstance is also thought. Like this person was,
Something,
yeah.
sorry, carry on.
I was gonna say how what I'm seeing fresh for me is like, oh, circumstance is thought too, as in the thing that you're resisting, you're trying to fall in love with is also made up of of thought or a judgment that you made. And because at the end of that session, me and this other the other person who were like wondering, we're doing a wonder exercise with this person. We're like we were confused. We're like, we don't get it. Like your life sounds amazing. Like what is there to like? What's the problem? And then as we said it, I, I watched I watched this person see it. Like her eyes lit up. They're like, oh yeah. It's like 98% of my life is amazing. But the 2% drive me up the wall because I want everything to be amazing. And we all kind of
Hmm.
had this moment of like, oh,
I realized as well what most people call life is the parade of circumstances,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
things that happen. And I realized I don't, when I say life is amazing or life is whatever, I love life, it's my felt experience of being alive. And that is not up for negotiation. That has to do with me and my well-being. And any circumstances can happen. I mean, some people get $1 million and make themselves terribly unhappy. So it has nothing to do. The circumstances are like they're like weather. They're up and they're down and wait long enough and they're going to change. And
I,
so
yeah, yeah.
yeah, life, what is life? That's so where you put your focus, I guess. If you think life is the circumstances, then you're
That's
a little
funny.
bit
I
screwed.
see it too now. I now realize that, oh, that isn't that cool? Like I realized like, oh, if I would have asked you like, what do you mean by life at the very beginning of this conversation,
Yeah.
like we would have gotten here faster. But you're right though, Sarah, because I realize the same thing too, is what people refer to life is they refer to circumstances. And if you have enough good circumstances, you have a good life. If you have enough bad circumstances, you've had a bad life. And it's like the game people are playing is, oh, if I can only have more good circumstances than bad, like that, like I should be okay. And what I could, what the best of my knowledge is what you're offering, Sarah, is to rise above that game, to see that like before someone decided what was good or bad, there was just pure life.
Yeah.
And like, who are we to judge like this is bad, this is good? Like that's so, there's an English word for it that's so, it's not objective, it's the other one.
Subjective.
Yeah, it's so subjective.
Was made up.
Yeah, it's made up.
I had talked about how I see our being born as having won the lottery. I think of these angels or spirit, angels in heaven, looking down at us living and going, oh, look at, she gets to go to the beach. Oh, I wish I could go to the beach. Or, oh, she gets to experience a sunburn. Oh my God, that's so fun. I can't experience a sunburn. Oh, look at them. And like everything and things we would say were good, things we would say were terrible. Look, they get to feel that. They get to feel
Yeah.
grief. They get to feel frustrated and lost. I wish I could feel something. And I think that we're the lucky ones who came down and got to eat ice cream and get sunburned.
That's a t-shirt right there. Whenever I think of like that metaphor of angels looking down, I think of like the memes of like my guardian angels are like drinking because they're just watching me like, oh my God.
Ah, no, that's the judgment again.
Right, that's a judgment, right? That's a
Where we put
judgment.
on the
Yeah,
we're just making it all up.
you're making it all up.
Making it all up. Yeah.
I think to me this points to something also you shared in our communications, that there's one thing you would love people to get as a result of listening to this conversation is a deeper knowing of the sheer awesome power we are as human beings.
Mm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, at our core, our essence, we're life itself. And we use we have the ability to think, which for a long time I didn't see that as being special. And
Yeah,
now I see it as absolutely mind-blowing
yeah,
because thought is the Sydney Banks had talked about how thought is the bridge between formless and the form.
right.
And it's the tool of creation. And we we have this power, and we're creating realities in every minute, every moment. If I think that broccoli is bad and I have to eat broccoli, I'm creating the broccoli hating reality. And as soon as I drop that or just don't think about broccoli, everything changes. It's a whole new world. I was sharing before a call how I didn't sleep one night last week and I woke up and I just, when I don't sleep, my thinking goes a little dark. And I was living in this really depressing reality. But at the same time, I was aware, it was like I could see what I was doing.
Yeah,
And I was like, yeah, you're so full of crap, Sarah. Like, but it was, we have this power to make a whole construct of reality and then live in it and
yeah,
then act as if these are the rules and these are the boundaries. But not, it's like we can literally just
yeah, yeah,
throw it off and it doesn't even exist.
yeah,
And it's everything is up for grabs. Everything's so many limitless possibilities. And we're like these, I see us as the nexus between the formless and formed possibility. We're the interface.
yeah.
We're
Oh,
so powerful and people have no idea.
I love that. Cool. All right, I have one final question is if you could give a gift to people listening or watching, and a gift could be a saying, a quote, an insight you had, what would you want to give people?
Let me get the words for this one. I was seeing this for a while because for a long time, I kept thinking I had to go that my negative thinking, the feeling of urgency that comes with it meant something that I have to attend to that. And so I kept being pulled into that more negative world that I was creating. And I decided to experiment. And I told myself, okay, you're going to go forward. Anything that feels bad, anything on the bad side of neutral. So if it feels slightly tense, anything over there, that's a complete lie. You can just ignore it all. It's made up, it's a lie, it's not real. And the experiment was to go with whatever felt good, felt good, felt good. And it was interesting right around that time, Mavis Karn, who I know you've had on this podcast and a teacher of yours, she said on a call, and I actually have it posted on my wall behind my computer, if it were true, it would feel really good. And it and,
Oh, snap. Oof. Hot. If it were true, it
and
would feel really
if
good.
it were true, it would feel really good. And I went forward with, okay, if it feels any ounce of bad, it's a lie. If it's true, it feels good.
Yeah,
And that my life just started unfolding
yeah,
better and better and better and better. So the gift would be to see for yourselves, life is meant to feel really good.
and I would like to add to that, but just from what I'm getting a sense is good, not as in like hyper happy, but like a deep knowing good. Like, oh, this is good.
Yeah. And I suppose there's a whole range of good.
Yeah. Okay.
You
Yeah,
might be
yeah, yeah.
hyper happy. Like, yeah, the hyper happy I would say would be coming from a circumstance, you're
Yeah, yeah,
loving, you're thinking something,
yeah, yeah,
but nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
But yeah, the sort of content, the feeling of who you are has it's a more of
yeah.
a deeper, and
Cool.
it's a little different for everybody, but yeah, I found it very useful to go very binary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bad is a lie, good is true.
Without
I'm
judging, right?
laughing
Without
myself.
just noticing without judging, right? Noticing without judging.
Or noticing that you are judging
Right, right, right.
and
What if it were just if it feels if it's true, it'll feel good in the sense of this way and then not that way. Like this way versus not that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it we can get into a lot of thinking about, well, what good is the right way to feel good.
Fair. Oh, yeah. What good catch? What where can we hang out with you? Where can we find out more about you?
Well, I have a newish website, um, and it's going away from my brain just now. What is it? Oh, I have you're putting things in the link. I have a whole bunch of social media.
I'll
I
put
think
all
it's
that in the description.
email on Instagram, Sara Joy O'Neill. Here it is, liveyouralivelife.com.
All
And
right.
it's new, so I'm excited about it. Right now it's sort of more simple website, but there's going to be like online courses and
All right.
actually and ways to many different ways to connect and
Okay. Cool.
live life alive.
All right. I will put all those links and descriptions, links in the descriptions. So check that out. Hang out with Sarah. She's one of my favorite people in this community. Thank you, Sarah, so much for your time, your wisdom, your experiences, and your sharing. I'm so grateful that we were able to capture it and record it to share it to anybody who needs it.
Thank you. It was a delight. It was wonderful being on. Thank you so much, Nikon.
Thank you. All right, everybody. I will see you in the next episode. Bye.